Okay, so I got to tell you, the other day I'm like scrolling through my feed and like everyone is suddenly some kind of spiritual guru, you know, manifesting abundance, aligning chakras, the whole nine yards.
Hmm.
And it kind of got me thinking, has spirituality just become like another trendy buzzword? How do we even know? Like
Yeah.
who's a genuine seeker and who's just,
Yeah, I mean,
posing for the gram, right?
it's interesting, because it's not like a new thing. Spirituality has been, well, it's been kind of both revered and misunderstood throughout history.
Yeah,
It seems like the deeper meaning, it like gets lost in translation, especially when it becomes, super popular.
totally. It's like when like everyone starts wearing that one style and it's just like, not cool anymore.
Right, exactly.
So to help us kind of navigate this whole, tricky terrain, we're diving deep into this article from the Spiritual Seek website.
Right.
It's called 10 Common Misconceptions About Spirituality. And hopefully this will help us all, cut through the noise and figure out what spirituality actually means, like beyond the filters and the slogans.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal because, I
Mhm.
mean, true spirituality, it should be about, a personal journey, right, of growth and self-discovery. It's
Mhm.
not just about following, the latest trends, right?
Exactly. Okay, let's jump into it.
Yeah.
Number one, spirituality and religion are the same thing. I feel like that's a super common assumption,
Right.
but this article makes it clear that like these are actually two distinct concepts. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, the article quotes Ken Wilber, who said that spirituality, it actually transcends any kind of specific religious framework, right? It's more about like cultivating a connection with something larger than yourself, whatever that might be for you. It doesn't have to require like subscribing to a specific set of,
Right.
doctrines or rituals or anything like that.
So it's more about the like inner experience rather than the
Yeah.
outward expression.
Right. You could be like attending religious services every week, but if you're not like feeling that connection,
Yeah.
right, or that sense of purpose, like, is it really spiritual? Yeah.
That's a really good point. It's kind of like going through the motions without really engaging with the meaning, right?
Exactly.
All right, misconception number two. Spirituality is an escape from reality.
Mm.
This one feels a little tricky. What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because on the surface, it might seem like, some spiritual practices, they encourage a certain kind of detachment, right, from the material world.
Right.
But the article, and I tend to agree, it argues that true spirituality, it's about engaging with all aspects of life,
Yeah.
even the difficult and messy parts.
It's not about like pretending everything is perfect or ignoring the
Yeah.
challenges.
No, not at all. It's actually it's quite the opposite, right? The article quotes Thomas Merton, who said, and I love this quote. He said, "It's about facing reality head on with all its complexities and finding strength and meaning like within those experiences, right? Not just
That makes a lot of sense. It's about finding a way to like navigate those ups and downs with more awareness and more resilience, and not just running away from it all.
exactly. So like it's about facing that stressful job head on, not just meditating to avoid dealing with it."
Yeah. Okay. Here's one that I think a lot of people might be curious about. Misconception number three. Spirituality brings abundance and wealth. Is this just like wishful thinking, or is there something more to it?
Well, I think the article, it challenges this idea pretty directly. It argues that true wealth, it's not really measured by, material possessions. It cites Jean-Paul Sartre, who is pretty critical of society's obsession with material gain and how that often, distracts us from what really matters.
It's so true. How many times have we seen like celebrities or like super wealthy people who seem to have it all but are still just deeply unhappy?
Yeah.
Like it seems like true fulfillment comes from something deeper than just like acquiring more stuff.
All right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, think about like Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, right?
Right.
He was born into like a life of privilege
Right.
and luxury, and yet he walked away from it all to seek enlightenment.
Yeah.
Clearly, material wealth, like, it didn't equal spiritual fulfillment for him, right?
Sure.
It makes you wonder, like, our modern day obsession with like manifesting abundance, like,
Yeah.
are we missing the point?
That's a great example. It makes me wonder, like, are we focusing on the wrong kind of abundance? Maybe it's about like cultivating inner peace or strong relationships or a sense of purpose rather than just chasing
Yeah.
material wealth. Okay, misconception number 4. Spirituality makes one superior to others. Ugh. I, hate this one. It's like the ultimate spiritual ego trap, right?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, the article, it calls this out as a major pitfall on the spiritual path,
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking you're, somehow better than others or more enlightened than others because you practice certain rituals or you follow a specific guru or you...
Looking down on someone because they haven't, discovered the magical powers of yoga,
Right.
or whatever your practice is. I think we've all encountered that kind of spiritual elitism,
Totally.
and it's just not a good look.
No, not at all. True spirituality, it's rooted in humility, recognizing our interconnectedness and remembering that everyone's on their own unique journey.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of journeys, let's talk about misconception number 5. Spirituality is an easy path to enlightenment. Sprinkle some meditation on your life and bam, instant enlightenment.
Right.
But is it really that simple?
Well, the article, it uses the example of Ramana Maharshi, who despite having these profound spiritual experiences, early in life, he continued to deepen his understanding and his self-awareness over decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really highlights the idea that true spiritual growth, it's a lifelong process.
Right.
It's not a quick fix, It's not a destination that you just arrive at.
It's more about the journey itself, the ongoing exploration and evolution rather than reaching some imagined finish line.
Right.
Right.
That's totally it.
And I think it's easy to fall into that trap of thinking we need to achieve, some sort of spiritual milestone to be considered successful in our practice.
Absolutely. And that kind of pressure, it can actually hinder our progress, It's like trying to force a flower to bloom before it's ready, Patience and self-compassion, those are such essential qualities on this path.
Okay, misconception number 6 is one that I find particularly intriguing. Spirituality bestows supernatural powers. I'm not going to lie. I've definitely had friends who were convinced that meditation was going to give them telekinetic abilities or something.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the article, it makes a distinction between psychic abilities, which some people may experience, and genuine spiritual growth, right?
Okay.
And while there are, accounts of individuals who seem to possess these extraordinary abilities, those powers aren't necessarily indicators of true spiritual development.
So just because you can predict the future or move objects with your mind, doesn't mean you're a good person,
right?
Or that you've achieved some higher level of consciousness.
Exactly. I mean, it's more about cultivating those heart-centered qualities that we talked about earlier, like compassion and empathy and kindness. You could have all the psychic powers in the world, but if you lack those fundamental human qualities, what's the point?
Yeah, I'm getting serious Yoda vibes here, Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
Right, exactly.
I mean, misconception number 7 might be one of the most pervasive in modern spirituality, right? Spirituality is all about positive thinking.
Okay.
It's focusing on love and light, pretending everything's perfect, right?
Yeah.
But is that really what it's all about?
Well, it's tricky. Because positivity is definitely an important aspect of well-being, right?
Sure.
But the article, it warns against what's called spiritual bypassing, which is basically using spiritual ideas to avoid facing difficult emotions or challenging situations.
It's toxic positivity, but with a spiritual twist.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think it's really important to acknowledge and process all of our emotions, both the, pleasant and the unpleasant. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, he emphasized the importance of integrating what he called the shadow self, right?
Yeah.
Those parts of ourselves that we might not want to acknowledge, but are, nonetheless a part of who we are.
It's funny you mention that because I used to be a huge believer in good vibes only, right? And trying to force myself to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
But I eventually realized that I was just suppressing my true feelings and avoiding dealing with the things that were actually bothering me.
Yeah.
It took me a while and some uncomfortable self-reflection to realize that I needed to embrace the full spectrum of my emotions, not just the pretty ones.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful point.
Yeah.
You know, it's about finding a balance, not denying or suppressing any part of ourselves.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about misconception number 8. Spirituality is conforming to certain life models.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels particularly relevant in today's world,
Yeah.
with all the spiritual like trends and gurus out there.
Right.
It's easy to get like caught up in that.
Yeah, absolutely. The article, it highlights the importance of, finding what resonates with you personally, right? Rather than just blindly following what everyone else is doing. And it uses the example of like crystal healing, right? And it's suggesting that it's not about just like buying a bunch of crystals because they're trendy,
Right.
It's about, understanding their properties and using them in a way that feels like authentic to you.
So it's more about the meaning and the intention behind the practice rather than just
Exactly.
following the crowd.
Don't feel pressured to adopt certain beliefs or practices just because they're popular. Take the time to explore different paths and find what genuinely speaks to your heart, right?
I think that's such an important message, especially, these days. Okay, here's one that can get a little controversial maybe. Misconception number 9. Spirituality consists in discerning good from evil. Is it really that, like black and white?
Well, the article argues that, labeling everything as strictly good or evil, it kind of oversimplifies, the complexity of human experience.
Right.
Right. And it goes against the idea of unity and interconnectedness that's at the heart of many spiritual traditions.
It's like judging someone harshly for making a mistake, instead of recognizing that we're all human and we're all
Right.
prone to errors, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's more about understanding and compassion and recognizing that everyone is on their own journey, And instead of judging others' actions, maybe we can try to see them as opportunities for learning and growth, right?
Yeah.
Both for ourselves and for the other person involved.
It reminds me of that saying, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It's so easy to jump to judgments, but true spirituality seems to be about cultivating a more nuanced and compassionate perspective.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the world through a lens of understanding rather than judgment, right?
Okay, last but not least, misconception number 10. Spirituality is about following specific practices or beliefs.
Well, the article emphasizes that, there's no one right way to be spiritual.
Right.
Right. And it highlights the incredible diversity of spiritual paths that exist in the world.
Yeah.
From indigenous shamanic traditions to organized religions and everything in between.
So whether you're into like yoga or meditation or prayer or chanting or nature walks or something completely different, it's about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
What helps you connect with something larger than yourself.
Exactly. It's about the journey and the exploration and the constant evolution of your understanding of yourself and the world around you.
Wow, we just unpacked 10 spiritual myths in record time. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Oh, there's one more thing we need to address.
Oh. This is intriguing. What is it?
Well, you see, the article, it ends with this little quiz, right?
Okay.
It asks, are you a true spiritual seeker? And it poses some, thought-provoking questions about your beliefs and your actions that I think could be really, really illuminating.
Ooh, a quiz. I love a good self-reflection moment. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of questions does it ask?
Well, you'll have to join us for part 2 of our deep dive to find out.
Oh, you're killing me with the suspense. All right, so are we ready to, put our seeker status to the test?
I hope so. This quiz from the Spiritual Seek article, it really gets you thinking, about the core principles of spirituality, how they show up in your life.
I got to admit, I'm a little nervous.
Wow.
But also excited to see what insights this might reveal. So let's dive into the questions.
All right, question number 1.
Okay.
Spiritual awakening is within everyone's reach. Agree or disagree?
That's a pretty profound statement.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the idea that, we all have that innate potential, right, for connection and deeper understanding, regardless of our background or beliefs.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, I think I agree with that one. What about you?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree as well. I mean, The article seems to support this view, you know. It emphasizes that spirituality isn't like limited to a select few. It's
Right.
about tapping into something that's already present within us, you know, just waiting to be awakened.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we all have that inner spark of divinity,
Yeah.
you know, just waiting to be ignited.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2. I actively strive to make a positive contribution to society.
This one, it kind of gets at the idea that the true spirituality isn't just about, you know, personal growth
Right.
and self-discovery. It also has like a social dimension,
That's
sense of
correct.
responsibility to the world around us.
Which is not enough to just like meditate on a mountaintop and focus on our own enlightenment. We got to like actually
Like do something. Okay.
It's about bringing that awareness and that compassion and that sense of interconnectedness into our, you know, our interactions with others.
Yeah.
And finding ways to make a positive impact, you know,
No.
however big or small.
I like that. It's about like taking action.
Yeah.
Putting our spiritual principles into practice in the real world, right?
Mm.
Okay. Question number 3. True spirituality generates abundance and prosperity. This one feels a little tricky, you know?
Yeah.
Especially after we just like debunked the myth that spirituality equals material wealth.
Right. This one's designed to make us think critically, you know.
Okay.
It challenges us to consider like what true abundance and prosperity
Yeah.
really mean.
So it's not about like attracting more money or possession.
But maybe about cultivating a sense of like inner abundance
Right.
or fulfillment or purpose.
Exactly. It could be about fostering meaningful relationships, you know,
Yeah.
or experiencing deep joy and contentment, or living in alignment with our values.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's about like recognizing the abundance that already exists in our lives, right? Both like internally and externally, rather than constantly chasing after something more.
Right?
Okay. Question 4. Listening to one's soul makes life happy and fulfilling.
This one, it kind of gets to the heart of why so many people are drawn to spirituality in the first place, you know?
Okay.
It's that longing for happiness and meaning and fulfillment.
But it's also suggesting that like those things come from within, right?
Right.
From connecting with our true selves
Yeah.
rather than from external sources like possessions or achievements or whatever.
Absolutely. It's about tuning into that inner voice, you know? Our intuition, that deep knowing that resides within each of us.
Yeah, I love that. It's about trusting our inner compass
Yeah.
and allowing it to guide us towards a life that feels, you know, authentic and aligned with our true purpose. Okay. Question 5 is a bit of a gut punch, I gotta say. I tend to dismiss ideas that challenge my beliefs or habits. Oof. I think we've all been guilty of this at some point, haven't we?
Yeah. It's definitely a human tendency, right, to want to protect our beliefs.
Right.
Especially when they're deeply ingrained or tied to our sense of identity.
Yeah. But this article is suggesting that like a true spiritual seeker is open to new perspectives, right? Even if those perspectives challenge their existing worldview. It's about being willing to learn and grow, you know? Even if it means like letting go of some of our preconceived notions.
Yeah, exactly. It's about having the humility to recognize that, you know, we don't have all the answers.
Right.
And being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
That takes courage to be willing to like question everything you thought you knew.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 6. I'm reluctant to embrace change because it disrupts my comfort zone. Another one that hits close to home. Change can be scary even when we know it might be good for us.
It's natural to resist change, right? Our comfort zones, even if they're not ideal, you know?
Right.
They provide us with a sense of familiarity and security.
Right. But this article seems to be suggesting that like embracing change, even when it's uncomfortable, you know, is a sign of true spiritual growth.
It's about being willing to step outside of those familiar patterns, right?
Yeah.
To explore the unknown and to trust that we have the strength and resilience to navigate whatever challenges might arise.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like
Yeah.
that saying life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Okay, so we went through all 6 questions. Now, do we get like a grade?
Not exactly a grade, but the article, it provides a little guide for interpreting your responses. It says to like count the number of statements you strongly agreed with, and then like check the corresponding profile.
Okay, let's see. I strongly agreed with 4 out of the 6. What does that make me? A spiritual slacker.
No, not at all. According to the article, if you selected 3 or 4 boxes,
Okay.
you fall into the category of a disoriented spiritual seeker.
Disoriented. That doesn't sound very promising. What does that even mean?
Well, it's not as negative as it might sound.
Okay.
It basically means that you're on the right path, you know?
Yeah.
But you might be feeling a bit lost or uncertain about the direction you're heading in.
Okay, that actually resonates with me. I'm definitely, drawn to spiritual ideas and practices, but I haven't quite found that solid foundation,
Yeah.
or that clear sense of direction.
Well, the article goes on to say that a disoriented spiritual seeker might be, drawn to various spiritual teachings and practices, but hasn't yet found that path that truly resonates with them,
Right.
on a deeper level.
So what can a disoriented seeker do to find that solid foundation, and move beyond that sense of confusion?
Well, the article, it encourages further exploration and self-reflection.
Okay.
It also suggests being mindful of those misconceptions we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
those traps that can lead us astray on the spiritual path.
Like chasing after material wealth or supernatural powers or
Exactly.
getting caught up in the whole spiritual bypassing trap.
Exactly. It's about staying grounded, being honest with yourself, and trusting your own inner wisdom.
Yeah, I'm already feeling a little less disoriented just by talking about it. What about the other profiles in the quiz? Like, what if someone strongly agreed with all 6 statements?
Well, according to the article, and I quote, "You are by no means a spiritual seeker."
Wow, that's pretty direct.
Yeah. It might seem harsh, but it's meant to be a wake-up call, If you strongly disagree with most of these statements, it might be a sign that you're not really interested in spiritual growth, or that you have some deep-seated resistance to change and self-reflection.
That's a good point. It's all about being honest with ourselves about where we're at on our journey.
Right.
What about the other end of the spectrum? What if someone only strongly agreed with 1 or 2 statements?
Well, if you selected 0 boxes,
Okay.
you're considered an authentic spiritual seeker, someone who's well on their way to self-realization
Wow.
and embodies the core principles of a spiritual life.
0 boxes. That's impressive.
And then if you selected 1 or 2 boxes, you're a growing spiritual seeker, someone who's making progress but still has, room to grow.
Right.
Makes
Evolve.
sense.
So there's a spectrum of spiritual development,
Yeah.
and we're all at different points along that path.
Exactly. And regardless of where you fall in this quiz, it's important to remember that this is just one perspective,
Right.
Your spiritual journey is unique to you, and there's no right or wrong way to approach it.
Yeah, this quiz has definitely given me a lot to think about. I feel like I've gained some valuable insights into my own beliefs and motivations,
Me too. And speaking of thinking, there's one more question from the original article that we haven't addressed yet.
Oh, I'm all ears. What's the question?
It's a simple but profound question. What does it mean to be a spiritual seeker?
Whoa, that's a big one. I think we're going to need a whole other episode to unpack that question.
I agree, but for now, I'll leave you with that question to ponder.
Okay, listeners, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into spiritual misconceptions. Join us next time as we tackle that final thought-provoking question and explore what it truly means to be a spiritual seeker. Welcome back to the deep dive.
So we've busted some spiritual myths, taken a quiz that, left me feeling a little disoriented, but also strangely motivated.
Yeah.
And now we're facing the ultimate question, right? What does it actually mean to be a spiritual seeker in today's world?
It's a question that, philosophers and mystics have pondered for centuries.
Right.
And I think it's one that each of us has to answer for ourselves. There's no one-size-fits-all definition.
I like that. It takes the pressure off, right? We don't have to fit into some predefined box or follow a specific dogma.
Exactly. But I think if we, look back at the article that we've been discussing and the conversations we've had so far, some key themes emerge that might, help guide us on this exploration. Okay, so based on what we've learned so far, what are some of the hallmarks of a true spiritual seeker?
Well, first and foremost, I think it involves a deep commitment to self-discovery
Yeah.
and inner work. It's about like looking inward, examining your beliefs, your values, your motivations, and being willing to question everything.
Not just blindly accepting what you've been told, but actively seeking your own truth.
Precisely. And it's not just about intellectual understanding. It's about cultivating emotional intelligence, learning to connect with your feelings, both the light and the shadow, as we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
and navigating them with compassion and awareness.
So it's not about like suppressing our emotions or pretending to be positive all the time.
Right.
But about developing a deeper understanding of ourselves and how we interact with the world around us.
Yes. And I think another important aspect of being a spiritual seeker is recognizing our interconnectedness with all things. It's about understanding that our actions have ripple effects, that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
It makes me think of that quote from the Dalai Lama. Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible.
I love that quote. And it's so relevant to what we're talking about, you know? True spirituality, it isn't just about personal enlightenment. It's about cultivating compassion and acting in ways that benefit not just ourselves, but also, the well-being of others and the planet.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Like walking each other home, as Ram Dass would say.
Beautifully put. And that brings us back to the idea of seeking, right? It's an ongoing process, a journey of continuous growth and evolution.
So a spiritual seeker is never really done. Like there's no finish line or ultimate destination.
I don't believe so. I think it's about constantly expanding your awareness, challenging your perspectives, deepening your connection to yourself, to others, and to that which transcends the material world.
It's like we're all works in progress, right? Constantly like evolving and becoming.
Yeah.
That's both like exciting and a little daunting, isn't it?
It can be both. But I think the most important thing is to approach this journey with curiosity, openness, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
To be comfortable with not having all the answers, right?
Exactly, because ultimately the beauty of spirituality lies in the seeking itself, in the constant exploration and discovery.
That's such a profound insight. It reminds me of a quote by Rumi, what you seek is seeking you.
I love that. It speaks to the idea that this journey is not like about finding something outside of ourselves, but about recognizing something that's already present within us.
It's about remembering who we truly are.
Beautifully said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, like what's a one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I want them to feel empowered to define their own spiritual path.
Yeah.
To remember that there's no right or wrong way to be a seeker. There's no need to conform to anyone else's ideas or expectations. It's about finding what resonates with you.
Yeah.
What brings you joy, what helps you connect with your inner wisdom, and what inspires you to live a more meaningful and authentic life.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So for all the disoriented, the curious, the skeptical, and the devoted seekers out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep growing. And remember, as the article so eloquently reminded us, the journey is yours to create.
And the most important thing is to enjoy the ride.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. And if you're interested in learning more about the topics we've discussed, be sure to check out the Spiritual Seek website. Until next time, happy seeking